We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today, Nashville Mayor John Cooper. Particularly, we're talking to him about the coronavirus and how that stands here in Nashville in this area. Mayor, I think the city has set the standard for releasing information about the status of the virus in Nashville. As people look at those, as you look at those, what do you look for signs of hope? What do you look for signs of concern as they look at these numbers every day? Okay.
Number of hospitalizations is what I look for, and that's comparatively small at this point. I think people can look at cases. It's a function of testing, and so it's going to be debated whether we have ever tested enough to know the true arc of the disease in the community. Fatalities, we've been great at. Each one is tough to hear about, but we're much lower than other places. I will say there's part of the data that should concern us. It's both a plus and a minus. So many of our cases come with middle-aged people. So that's telling us that we can do something about that. Social distancing is probably going to be very important with that audience. But then people should be very glad that our older at-risk patients, we have not shown up with the same numbers that would be expected. And that, I think, is showing that protocols at nursing homes have worked extremely well so far. And we've done a better job of protecting our at-risk patients. And then finally, we've got superb healthcare facilities here in Nashville, and they've been doing an outstanding job all along in this process. And so, relatively speaking, we do have fewer fatalities and lower hospitalization than I think people would have expected.
Mayor, the governor, looking towards the surge coming, says the state is 7,000 hospital beds short. Where are we in Nashville? How short are we on beds, potentially?
Well, I mean, I think you would assume that we'd have a greater share for our region, right, than you would think. And that's why bringing on auxiliary overcapacity, oversupply facilities, such as the Music City Center, is going to be important. To add big chunks of extra capacity to our system. We've got, if you believe the same model that's getting you to do this, then several weeks to get ready. And so that's what everybody is busily trying to get done today. Now, let me just comment for a second. You add, say, the Music City Center, 1,000, 1,400 beds. That's adding a facility really larger than Vanderbilt right now in terms of capacity. That's a huge undertaking. It's going to take a lot of staffing. It's going to take people, their shifts of nurses, their supplies, there's food. All that is going to occupy everybody's time to get ready for that. Corps of Engineers, I think, is going to do a good job on facility, but the harder job is going to be staffing it correctly.
When do you think that's going to be up and running, and will it only stay for being used for patients that are not in critical care? I have heard some things about oxygen lines being put in. Is that an indication that it could be converted to do critical care if necessary?
Well, good health decisions are going to be made about this facility. The regional health providers are going to partner together to use this as a regional overcapacity facility. Those regional providers, who we all have a lot of confidence in, Vanderbilt, St. Thomas, HCA, the regional medical centers, are going to be deciding what kind of capacity they're going to need, and then to use that as the first part of overcapacity. At one point, I think it has been thought that maybe it would be more acute care, but that's harder to do in a separate facility. Why don't we keep our current hospitals for the more acute patients and then have this facility for the less acute patients? It'll be easier to accomplish better in doing that. But that's the kind of detailed decisions that are being made, frankly, today and tomorrow. Having the facility prepared and ready to go, I have every confidence it will be ready by the time the curve says that it needs to be ready.
There's also been talk about hotels and perhaps college dormitories being used for additional bed capacity. Anything in particular in the pipeline for that?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. That's the next stage that people are working on. You do have unique needs for housing on the spillover for this. You have people that have tested positive who have on the other side of the disease but can't go home. Right? You have people who are tested positive who are at, you need to protect your healthcare workers. You probably have 5 or 6 separate housing categories where people will need to be separated, such as in dormitories or in hotels. And that's kind of the B part of the plan once you get beyond handling the patient load itself.
In your morning briefing, there was a talk from on Friday from the health director that you shouldn't just look at the numbers in Davidson County, that if we've seen the virus spread, particularly the surrounding counties around Metro, instead of looking at around 800 plus kind of cases, we ought to look more at 1,600 cases. Are you satisfied that enough regional planning is going on for this, particularly in terms of the hospital beds?
And that's what's going on, is regional planning, and the Music City Center will be a regional facility. Now, much of the healthcare in Middle Tennessee is delivered by strong national players who happen to be in this market, national figures. So it's still consistent with how we deliver healthcare in Middle Tennessee. It is still Ascension and Vanderbilt and HCA that are handling more patients than anybody else. There are other providers too. So we're going to continue. It is a regional problem. It was never just a countywide problem. We were doing what we needed to do in the county to slow down things, but ultimately the healthcare response is being provided by our strong regional partners. And the overflow facility is fundamentally a help to them in the response. And this is, I think we're all used to that. Everybody's going to the hospital that you're used to going to. And then if there's overcapacity needs, we're going to be prepared for that.
Nashville Mayor John Cooper is our guest today. We'll continue our conversation with him after you watch these messages.